Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of History of Machines. My name is Josh and I'll be talking to you guys about the background of robotics over time. So we're going to be starting from the first known robotic invention to present day. For those of you who may not know, this is the first episode, so episode 1 of a series that I want to create with my robotics team, Team 5795 Back to the Drawing Board. In this age of technology, we want to teach you guys about how robots became integrated as a norm of our daily lives, beginning from the creation of robotics itself. We are surrounded by and make use of robots every single day, so it'd be important to learn when and how robots came about. The exact definition of a robot varies when asked by others, so depending on who you ask, they may give varying definitions, but for the sake of this video, we're going to be defining it as a programmable machine that is capable of carrying out a series of actions automatically. When you hear the word robot, you may think of several well-known machines, such as C-3PO, R2-D2, and WALL-E. The idea of robots itself has been around for quite some time, but the creation of the first robot was actually not too long ago. So based on our definition, the history of robots began in 1948. This is when American neurobiologist William Gray Walter built his first two robots, Elmer and Elsie. So the two images are images of Elmer and Elsie, and although the robots looked very primitive and rather simple, the machines were very revolutionary at the time. As you can see, Elmer and Elsie had the nickname of turtle robots because of their shell-like shape and extremely slow movements. Elmer and Elsie were capable of finding the charging stations when their batteries ran low. These two electronic robots were revolutionary because they were the first robots to be programmed to think like the human brain does and somewhat have free will. So the next significant event occurred in 1954. The first commercial digital and programmable robot was built by American inventor George Charles Devil Jr. So George Devil Jr. created his robot and named it Unimate, which is short for Universal Automation. So Unimate was a very large robotic arm, and if you look at the images, Unimate looks very similar to the modern day robotic arms used in factories. Unimate was later sold to General Motors in 1961, and that's where it was used to lift hot pieces of metal from casting machines and weld them into automobiles in New Jersey. George W. Jr. was dubbed the grandfather of robotics for his invention of Unimate. The legacy of Unimate didn't stop in 1954, but rather continued on to the next decade. In the late 1960s, American physicist, engineer, and entrepreneur Joseph Engelberger acquired the patent for Devil Jr.'s robot, and Engelberger modified Unimate into an industrial robot and formed the company Unimation to produce and market the robot. Engelberger conceived the usefulness of robots in manufacturing, and particularly in performing tasks that would be way too dangerous and risky for humans to do. As a result, Engelberger became known as the father of robotics itself. So 1957 marked the next pioneering moment for robotics history. On October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union was able to successfully launch Sputnik 1 into orbit. Sputnik 1 was the world's first autonomous artificial satellite. It was 22.8 inches in diameter and weighed in at only 183.9 pounds, but it was able to transmit radio signals back to Earth while in orbit. The launching of Sputnik began the space race between the US and Soviet Union, and also propelled the progression of robots into space. Several months later, the USSR successfully launched Sputnik 2 into orbit, carrying a dog named Laika on board. There's an image of Sputnik 2 on the top right. As a result, the Soviet Union became the first country to successfully launch a living organism into the Earth's orbit. Soon after, the US entered the space race by launching Explorer 1 into orbit, and later formed NASA. After several more successful launchings, the U.S. utilized the latest knowledge of robotics and technology to send Neil Armstrong to the moon in 1969.